where did she go? Here's what we know for sure. She leaves her home with Gannon at approximately 10:16 a.m. 21 minutes later, at 10:37 a.m., a text was sent from Gannon's phone to Harley's phone. Remember, Harley is Letitia's daughter. The text said, T left her phone at home. Call me if you need her. We do not know if it was Letitia or Gannon that sent that text message. My guess is that it was Letitia, because I doubt that Gannon had control over his phone at all that day. But of course, that's pure speculation. At 11:22 a.m., Letitia is seen on surveillance camera, and there is a receipt from a Petco in Colorado Springs. This Petco is 22 miles away from home and about a 30-minute drive. Did they stop somewhere between home and Petco? This was a 30-minute trip. And unless Letitia spent over a half an hour in Petco before she checked out, she would have had to make an additional stop. I have heard that Letitia purchased 3 dog sweaters at Petco. If that's all she bought, I seriously doubt she was in the store for over half an hour. I'm sure from the surveillance photo, the police know exactly when she entered the store and when she left. Only Letitia was seen on that surveillance video. Gannon was not. She claims that he wanted to stay in the car. Was he in the car? I wonder if he was even alive at that time. From 11:22 that morning to 1:22 that afternoon, we have no idea the whereabouts of Letitia or Gannon. Where did they go in that red pickup truck? 2 hours is a long time. At 12:06 p.m., Al texted his son Gannon. He said, "Hey, buddy." But there was no answer. In fact, the text wasn't answered for another hour. An hour and 15 minutes after the text was sent, at 1:21 p.m., a text was sent from Gannon's phone to Al's phone. It said, "Can I at least play Zelda?" Al responded, "Not today." I have always wondered about these text messages. Not only who sent them, but what they truly meant. So Gannon asked, "Can I play Zelda at least?" At least makes me think that maybe he was being punished. Maybe his punishment for knocking over the candle was that he couldn't play his video games. So he's asking his dad, "Hey Dad, can I at least play Zelda?" But his dad said no. His dad said, "Not today." That is the only thing I can think of that make these text messages make sense. 1 minute after the text was sent, Letitia is seen back at the Petco. I think it is a strange coincidence that the text message wasn't answered for so long, and then when it was answered, it was when Letitia and the pickup was back at the Petco. At that time, the truck was most likely in the Petco parking lot, and Letitia could have responded to that text message. At 1:43 p.m., a Google search was performed on Gannon's phone. The search was, "Can my parents find my phone if it is off?" Did Gannon perform this search, or did Letitia? Was she wondering whether she should dispose of the phone? But when she found out that it could be traced, she ended up taking it back to the house with her. Or was she trying to set up the runaway theory that she knew she was going to tell the police later that night? At 2:19 p.m., the pickup truck arrived back at the Stauch residence. If Letitia left Petco right after sending this text on Gannon's phone, she would have arrived home in perfect timing. It was 36 minutes later, and if you remember, the drive is about a half an hour. Let's focus on the neighbor's video that sees the pickup arrive back at home. The pickup pulls into view and parks in front of the home. It sits in the road for 28 seconds. It took her a few times, but the pickup eventually stops in the driveway, about the same place that it was parked earlier that morning when Gannon got into the truck. Tisha sits in the truck for 39 seconds while it was parked in the driveway before she gets out. But this time, it appears that T was the only one that got out of that pickup. She had something light colored in her hand. Could it have been a bag from Petco? It did look like a small plastic bag. Within 6 seconds, she is out of view and is heading towards the house. The video did not show Gannon getting out of the front seat or out of the back seat on the driver's side. If he had gotten out on the other side, you'd think you would see his feet or his legs underneath the truck. But you don't. Remember, she sat in that truck for 39 seconds. So there was a long time to view, and you could not see Gannon get out of the back or out of the other side. I truly think you would have seen him on that video if he had gotten out any of those doors. I have never been able to get over the fact that I could not see Gannon get out of that truck. Where was he? After Letitia left the truck, it was stated that she locked the truck, opened the garage door, and went inside. Where was Gannon? Where did she go those 2 hours after she left Petco? Was that when Gannon lost his life? Or is that when she disposed of his body? Once again, that is just my theory, and it's completely speculation. But ever since seeing that video of the neighbors, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what happened to Gannon that day. The original affidavit filed by the police states that the police believe that Gannon got out of that vehicle. I just don't think he did. I have watched that video numerous times. I don't see him. And I really think you would. So Letitia is back in the house. She was back inside the house by 2:20. And remember that ADT security has motion sensors on the doors, in the living room, and in the basement. The motion sensors detected activity both upstairs and downstairs during this time. Between 2:30 and 3:30, the back door closed and opened over 10 times. 25 minutes after she got home, she was back on her phone at 2:45 p.m. Less than an hour after Letitia got home, her stepdaughter, Lena, was getting off the bus from school. This was 3:15 p.m. And when Lena got home, she asked where her brother was. Letitia told her that Gannon was asleep in her room and that Lena couldn't see him right now. She told Lena to go outside and play. Did she not want Lena in the house? Was she still cleaning up? At 3:28, the ADT security showed that the front door opened. This was most likely Lena going outside, and she was seen on the neighbor's surveillance camera playing outside on her bike from 3:30 to 3:42. Gannon should have been out there playing with her that day. They should have been playing together, riding their bikes, playing with their dogs, just being kids. But unfortunately, Gannon would never get to ride his bike again. During this time, Letitia made many phone calls and many text messages. Remember, Al is in Oklahoma, and he has absolutely no idea what is happening with Gannon. He has no idea how much his life will change that day. At 3:55 p.m., Al texted Gannon again, and he said, "Hey, buddy." That must be the way that Al starts all the text messages with Gannon. I thought that was so sweet. That text message was not read until 7:40 that evening, way after Gannon was reported missing. Sadly, Gannon never saw that text message from his father. Letitia's daughter, Harley, was at work that day. She worked from 8:30 a.m. to 4:15 p.m. At 4:42 p.m., Harley arrived home from work in her Jetta. She picked up her stepsister, Lena, and they drove off. 10 minutes later, Letitia texted Harley. She asked her to buy cleaning supplies. What a coincidence! She asked her to buy carpet cleaner, baking soda, and trash bags. Later, the police found the receipt for these items in Letitia's car. At 5:14 p.m., the girls checked out from the dollar store. The receipt from the dollar store showed a purchase of trash bags, vinegar, baking soda, baby lotion, cotton balls, cotton rounds, and bubble gum. Blood stains can be removed with vinegar and baking soda. That is very coincidental if it's not related. As we discussed earlier, at 6:55 p.m., Letitia called the police. She stated she called the police to report Gannon missing. The police didn't respond until 10:09 that night, and Gannon was still missing. The police asked Letitia for permission to search her home for Gannon, and she said yes. Her car, which was a black Volkswagen, was backed into the garage when the police arrived. Now, if you remember earlier from the neighbor's surveillance video, that Volkswagen was in the driveway. I wonder when she backed it into the garage. This was kind of a coincidence because later, the police found blood in the garage, and they said it was under where that Volkswagen would have been parked that evening. They also later explained that blood was also found on the back bumper of her car. When the officers came that night, they were wearing body cams, which ended up being extremely important because they were able to compare the police's body cams from the photos that Letitia took in Gannon's bedroom that morning. There were many differences. There was a different sheet on the bed, a different blanket, a different pillowcase, and even a different pillow. Yes, you could say that since Gannon was sick the night before, she probably cleaned those items and removed them from the bed. But those items have never been found. Why? Were they covered in blood? Did they have evidence on them? Did they hold the answers of what happened to Gannon that day? We now move to the following day. That was the day that Albert, Gannon's father, was to arrive home. But before Letitia went to pick up her husband at the airport, at 8:17 a.m., there was a Google search on her phone. She searched rental cars, and 13 minutes later, she arrived at the airport and parked her car, the Volkswagen, in the airport lot. Then she rented a Kia Rio to pick up her husband from the airport, because that wouldn't look suspicious. While Letitia was waiting for Al at the airport, she texted her daughter Harley at 8:48 a.m. She asked Harley to move her car into the garage. Why? Was there still evidence on that garage floor that Letitia wanted Harley's vehicle to cover up? When Al came out of the airport that morning, I cannot imagine how confused he must have been. His son is missing, and for some reason his wife goes and rents a car. The excuses she gave him were ridiculous. She stated 2 reasons. First, she didn't want to put the miles on her car when she was searching for Gannon. Okay, so if my son was missing, the last thing I would worry about is how many miles I was going to put on my car. I would never think about going and renting a car. That's insane. Number 2, she claimed that when she was searching for Gannon, she didn't want Gannon to recognize her car. Later, when the police examined her car was also found to be in fine working order. She also wouldn't tell anyone where her car was. She told Al that it was by some random elementary school. Why the heck would you park your car in just some random place, especially when your son is missing? Al and the police tried to find her vehicle, but they didn't have any luck. Little did they know that it was parked at the airport. So that morning, Letitia and Al left the airport and headed home. In the early afternoon, Letitia performed another Google search. My goodness, this lady, does she not have a clue that those reports are kept on your phone? This time she searched, "Can Nintendo find my Switch?" Unfortunately, the Nintendo Switch has no tracking capabilities. So when she performed that search, was she debating whether to dispose of the Switch? Remember, that Nintendo Switch was never found again. Why did it need to be gotten rid of anyway? Did it have evidence on it? Was it part of the crime? Or had Letitia already gotten rid of it, and then she was worried and she wondered, oh my goodness, could that Switch lead right to Gannon? The neighbors recalled how strange Letitia was acting that day. Remember, Gannon had been gone for less than 24 hours. The neighbors stated she didn't act at all like they would imagine a person with a missing stepson would act. She seemed to be enjoying the attention. One neighbor stated that she was acting like she was at a barbecue. She was full of smiles and acting way too relaxed. That day, the neighbor Roderick told Letitia about the surveillance video outside his house. He told her that he could check them to try to see where Gannon went that night. But she told him no. Was she worried when he told her that? Was she thinking in her mind, oh my goodness, what happened outside? What could he see? Al authorized a search of his house that day, the first of numerous searches. The whereabouts of Letitia are not known from the afternoon that day until the following morning. But for some reason, Letitia was worried about her phone again because she disconnected her phone from the network. Remember, Gannon had only been missing for 24 hours. Why isn't she searching the neighborhood? Why isn't she home with her family? Why isn't she waiting for Gannon to return? Why isn't she trying to find her stepson? Is it because she knows exactly where he is? Is it because his body was with her that night? Later that evening, Letitia's vehicle was removed from the airport parking lot. Police say between 8:30 and 10:20 that her vehicle was in the northwest part of Colorado Springs. Her car stopped for 5 minutes off Highway 105 and Perry Lake Road in Douglas County, Colorado. What was she doing for those 5 minutes? So late at night, so far from home. I don't think she was searching for her stepson. Was she disposing of his body? Or had she already disposed of his body there earlier in the day? Was she returning to make sure nothing was visible from the road? Or making sure no evidence was in plain sight? Later, the police would find a particle board with Gannon's blood on it at that exact site. At 10:26 p.m., Letitia's daughter hardly left the house. Was she going to meet her mother? What else did T do that night? There is one other theory floating around about what T was doing that night. I am not 100% sure if it is accurate because there is some speculation that it is actually an error, but it is something I still want to discuss. Her rental car contract had unlimited miles, and when her car was checked back in within less than 24 hours, it had 955 miles on it. Now, there is some doubt as to whether she truly put 955 miles on this car. But if she did put that many miles on the car, I don't think it was searching all around town for Gannon. If those miles are correct, where did she go? She could have driven 450 miles in one direction and then turned back around and drove another 450 miles. That's a long way. She could have driven from Colorado Springs all the way to Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, or anywhere in between. If I had to guess, I would say she headed east or southeast, and here's why. I believe at that moment, she knew she couldn't stay in Colorado Springs, that at some point she had to leave. And I think she knew she was going to go to South Carolina. That's where her family was. So did she drive somewhere that night and put Gannon's body somewhere with future plans to pick it back up on the way to South Carolina? Once again, 100% speculation.